What happened that time you saw the fury of a patient man? Story 1. Gym class in high school. The quiet, nerdy kid kept getting picked on during dodgeball. One jerk kept hitting him with balls even when he was already out. The quiet kid wasn't tiny by any means. He was about average sized, maybe a little taller than average. He eventually lost his temper, ran across the court, and literally delivered a double-handed choke slam to the jerk. Being a bunch of teenage boys, we all lost our crap cheering for him. He got suspended for 3 days, but it got reduced to 1 day in school after a bunch of us went to the principal and explained the circumstances. Story 2. I was bullied in school. Not as badly as most, but it still did happen. There was 2 cases that come to mind. The judo champion of our school was one of the biggest culprits for picking on me. One time we were heading up the stairs to our French class onto the top floor. He grabs me in a bear hug from behind, locked my arms to my side. The only course of action left to me was to throw my head back, cracking him on the bridge of his nose. Another time he put a plastic bag over my head, a thin one. I think it mostly ripped just by him trying to force it onto my unwilling head. It was only after I pushed him into the corner of a table that he stopped. In both cases, violence was the only option open to me, and in both cases it prevented that situation from happening again. Both these incidents were just the final times this happened. The bear hug going up the stairs was a particular favorite trick of his. I've had spoken to teachers about him, and others, before, but it was just blown off. I guess because the biggest bullies in my year were most of the effing perfects, with the head boy being the ringleader, but because it was all their word against mine. Story 5. This story is about my dad. About a decade ago, while I was in high school. We lived on a hill, and if you go down the hill, it leads into the main part of the town, where all the shops and stuff are. And if you go up, over the other side, it's where a lot of the bars and clubs are. It's quicker to go over than around, obviously. Back then, my parents each had a car instead of sharing one, and only one space in the garage. And drunk idiots were constantly damaging Mom's car. But one night, Dad happened to have a day off, fall on the weekend, and he could hear a group of drunk people walking up the road. His little office/computer room is at the very front of the house. So he gets up, goes out the front door, and just waits near the front lawn, watching. They're being loud and pushing each other around. Mom's worried as F and comes to get me because she doesn't want him to get hurt by some drunk idiot. And I go out to see what he's doing. They end up pushing each other around more, and one bumps into the car, is leaning on it and the hood of the car. My dad tells him to get away from it. They start taunting him, so he walks closer towards them, and one of the little bastard clean smashes the side mirror off while laughing at him. Dad is a 6'8" ex-basketballer. Basically just all around effing huge, and is small man bait on a normal day. Dad hit him straight in the jaw, and you could see as his jaw completely broke. Guy immediately screaming and bawling his eyes out at the same time, while his friends pick him up and run away. Never heard from them again, or got in any trouble for it. Dad just went back inside and watched TV. Yeah, I don't know why they thought that was a good idea. I just don't understand what gets inside these people to make them think that this was a good idea. Like, let's just speak the facts real quick. So these people just went up to this random person's property, starts taunting a 6'8" man, and breaks his property. Or his wife's property, I should probably say. Or both of theirs, I'm not sure. Regardless, they thought this was a good idea and was gonna end well. Like, what do they think they were gonna do? Just like, were they... I don't understand people sometimes. Story 6. Working in an auto parts warehouse, one of our managers was a very quiet, collected person. One particular day, some of the orders were wrong, and the ordering system was malfunctioning. He calmly goes out back, starts up a forklift, and rams it full speed at a huge stack of wood pallets. He must have thrown it in reverse and repeated this about a dozen times, raising and lowering the forks appropriately. Everyone stopped working to watch as every last pallet was destroyed. When there was only a pile of wood scraps left, he turned off the lift and calmly walked back in and continued working as if nothing happened. Story 7. Twice in 20 years, I've seen the fury of my very patient, docile, and kind stepdad. The first time was when some 12th graders chased my brother and cousin all the way from school to our backyard, threatening their lives with pocket knives. Stepdad calmly walked to the backyard, grabbed the big kids by their throats, and lifted them up, pinning them to the fence. "Stay the hell away from my kids," was all he said in a calm, teeth-biting kind of way. The kids booked it faster than I've ever seen anyone run, and never bugged my brother or cousin again. Then we all went inside and made burgers. The second time was in my angsty preteen years when I called my mother a bee. He turned at me, and I've never been so scared in my life. This time he was right pissed and screamed at me until I was backed up against our bar counter, shielding myself with a bar stool legs. The second he backed off slightly, I booked into my bedroom and barricaded myself with all the furniture I could find. Didn't come out for a solid day until I got up the courage to apologize. But he's a teddy bear normally. Alright, this is kind of off topic, but I always wondered, is it actually physically possible to pick someone up by their neck? Like, I always thought about it, like, if you think about it, that's like doing a lateral raise with 100 pounds at least. Like, is that, like, physically possible? Story 8. Not the last, but a notable one. Kid at my school was the third tallest kid in the school, but definitely the biggest. Probably 6'6", but really overweight. A little crap who had bullied loads of kids for years decided to pick on him outside of history, which was on the top floor of the school. This guy is barely 5 foot tall, if that, and no one liked him. Big kid wasn't the most popular guy in school or anything, but he wasn't a bully and was well enough liked. So 5 foot is there yelling at 6'6", the usual garbage. You're a pussy, you suck D, effing packy S. That kind of stuff. Everyone is pointedly ignoring him. Then he actually hits him. 6'6" head turns slowly towards him. It's like watching a golem come to life in a movie. 5 foot is there in a standard young man boxing stance. 6'6" just reaches over, grabs him by his head and then his belt and lifts him up above his head as 5 foot struggles. The 6'6" guy walks over to the spiral staircase, which goes all the way down to the bottom of the school, 4 floors down. 5 foot realizes what's about to happen and just goes quiet. 6'6" throws him down the stairs. We all rush to watch as he tumbles down flight after flight, finally stopping unconscious at the feet of our deputy head. A really nice guy, actually, who was just about to come up from the basement level. Deputy head gets the nurse and the kid is taken away, presumably to a hospital. But I don't know. He wasn't seriously injured, unbelievably, but very badly bruised. Deputy head comes up to where we are all standing, about 20 or so of us. Says, did anyone see what happened here? Student, I didn't see who. Pipes up, 5 foot, tripped, and fell down the stairs, sir. Everyone nods agreement. 6'6" was still in school a few days after, and people got expelled from our school for much less. So I guess 5 foot kept his mouth shut. The insults he was throwing would have got him expelled, or at least suspended too. But he'd been suspended before, so probably the former. So yeah, maybe don't pick on guys with around 4 times your body mass, even if they seem quiet. Alright, is it just me? Like, I get this guy was being annoying, but kind of chucking someone down the stairs of 4 floors? If I'm getting this right, I hope I'm reading this right, it was 4 floors. Isn't that a little, like, just, like, overkill? Like, this guy could have actually probably killed this man. I don't know how, like, I don't know, like, why didn't he just, like, smack him a few times? I feel like a little, like, slap and backhand would have done the trick. Instead, this guy just picked him up like a rag doll and threw him. Like, why? That dude definitely had some demons that day. I guess the guy kind of, like, in a metaphorically sense, threw his demons out, you know? This guy's like, you know what? This guy is the devil. I'm gonna throw him out. Story 9. I once was playing soccer in a local school area. After 8 p.m., the gates are closing, so we just all agreed that we were going to leave after 8 p.m. When it was like 7:59, a friend of mine kicked the ball on the roof, not on purpose, of the school. No, this was my brand new ball, so I really wanted it back. So I climbed on the roof of the school, but this was kind of hard, so it took longer than the 1 minute I had before the gates were closing. I finally got my ball, but by this time, it was already 8:15. That's when I spotted my local police officer. I don't know the English word, but it's a police officer that only has a specific block. I know this guy because, you know, he's the policeman from my block. He starts shouting my name that I need to get off that roof now because I was trespassing. So I panicked because the policeman was shouting at me. I climbed down the roof and the policeman told me that I was trespassing and that is against the law. I told him I just wanted my new ball and that I plan to get out of the gates at 8 p.m. But this guy was old and grumpy, so he asked for my ID card. Being 11, I didn't have an ID card. So this MF took me to local jail. So at this point, me and my 3 friends are sitting in a 2x2 jail cell. It had 144 bricks, a metal door, and a bed. No sheets. I'll never forget those numbers. So an agent starts asking us questions about a series of burglaries. And we just stood there with a WTF, we are 11-year-olds mate face. So the policeman said, well, if you're not going to talk, I guess we need to call your parents. The 4 of us were like, F, finally. We asked for this the first time you took us here. Well, we were crying. I won't lie. So I guess 20 minutes later, I hear some noise in the distance. An older guy yelling to an officer. We were like, who could this be? No, I grew up in a strict Christian family. Turned out it was my father yelling at the whole stations to release us because we were just playing soccer. And that policeman were freaking stupid to think a group of 11-year-olds was responsible for a series of burglaries. That was the first and last time I heard my dad say some swear words. Story 10. Reminds me of something that happened to a friend of mine years ago. He and one of his other friends were riding their bikes and stashed them behind a grocery store so they could go inside and get themselves something. On their way out, a police officer asked them, so where did you kids hide the bikes? My friend replies, we put them out back. The officer then requests backup on his radio before repeatedly questioning the kids on where they stole the bikes from. What followed was a 3-hour-long back and forth where my friends insisted the bikes were theirs, and the officer being certain that they had been stolen, which resulted in them getting arrested and taken to the police station. Eventually, the whole thing got sorted out, and the cop took them home. My friend's grandmother was at the door when it happened, and the officer said, I'm sorry, this is my first day. To which the grandmother replies, and it will be your last. Yeah, that guy definitely did way too much. If they're going to a grocery store and they're putting the bikes in the back, like, why would they be hiding stolen things in such a public a public area. Yeah, I can't really think of any way why this cop would go on their way and, go on that little power trip. Story 11. My bike got stolen, so my dad's friend gave us, my sister and my brothers were stolen too, new bikes. So one day I was riding around and I go into a school parking lot and a car pulls in. That's weird. Well, there are still cars here. Maybe a meeting, I thought to myself. I start backing towards my house and this car won't stop following me. Okay, it obviously wants something. I better go near my house just in case. So I do that and I'm thinking that's probably an old teacher wanting to say hi. Nope. Not at all. It's someone that looks like the girl from Hardcore Pawn, but less orange. She stops and says, "Where did you get that bike?" I say that my dad's friend gave it to me about 2 days ago. It was probably like 2 weeks. Then out of nowhere, she says, "Well, that's my stolen bike. I'm going to call the police now." Like, slow down there. You don't tell a 13/12-year-old that you are going to call the police 2 sentences into the conversation. So she wants to talk to my parents, so I go inside red-faced, about to cry, and tell my dad that they are stolen. And he goes out and works out, and she threatened me with the police for no reason. Yeah, in this story, where do we get the part of the fury of a man, though? It just ended like that. I'm not even lying. That's how the story ends. Regardless, though, yeah, she was definitely probably trying to do some weird scam where, because, like, it's so easy to just be like, "Oh, that's my bike. You stole that bike from me." So she's definitely probably trying to pull some hokey stuff where it's kind of messed up. She's literally, like, preying on children that kind of get, like, scared, and they're like, "Okay, here's your bike." Story 12. My dad was in the army as an officer. I've always known him as a soft-spoken, kind, never gets angry kind of person. He rarely ever raises his voice that I know of. There's a law in the US that basically protects any service member nearing 20 years from being forced out so they can't get full retirement benefits. One day he gets a call from his commanding general telling him that he's going to be forced, put due to budget cuts army-wide. He got up out of his seat and started yelling at the general on the phone that it was impossible due to the law since he was in the safe zone. He started quoting section after section, yelling at the general telling him he had effed up and that it better be fixed. A few days later, my dad got a call again from the general, and the first thing the general said was, "Before you say anything, let me apologize for the other day. You were 100% correct. But budget cuts are budget cuts, and as soon as my dad hit 20 years, he was retired." Story 13. I know a guy who is a sprinter cyclist and has been doing that stuff for over a decade. He's not jacked in the traditional sense, but has massive legs from the cycling. Call him C. He's also the calm and collected type of guy. Likes to play chess when he's not on a bike, and is always methodical when doing anything. It's a quality I admire in him. He also never gets mad at any people, or provokes conflict. He was out with a girlfriend and her friends one time and called me and a few other friends to hang out in the city, drink some beers, and eat together. The night's going fine, we're having fun, and banter ensues. When walking back home with the 4 of us, him, girlfriend, me, and another dude, we get set on by a couple of heavy-built shady types who start to chat up his girlfriend. I'm big, but hell, I was uncomfortable seeing them. So he tells them to stop bothering her over and over and over. They've been following us for a good 5 minutes. They don't stop, and at some point, one of the guys grabs the girl by the arm. Me and my friend drag him off her and form a shield of sorts between her and the 2 dudes. C is effing pissed. The 2 heavies don't pay attention to him because we're the bigger targets, and offended by us pulling his friend away from the girl. The second guy comes in swinging, he never makes it. He stops in mid-walk like he's hit a wall and bends over, howling in pain and clutching his chest. Then the second hit comes, right on his upper torso, and he falls down like a sack of sand. C is standing next to him like a hungry hyena and is looking at the second guy, livid arms, wide and shaking. Opting to not piss off the small guy anymore, number 2 picks up his buddy and walks away as fast as he can. What happened was that guy stopped because C took a small sprint and smashed him in the ribs with his right knee, then again from the ground as the meat slab was bent over. The hits were brutal. He learned that from Muay Thai classes. The move was similar to one of these, which is a link provided. Moral of the story, don't mess with people that have strong legs, and take offensive fighting classes, no matter how tiny they are. Yeah, this is very true, Like, I've seen some crazy lifts happen from smaller builds. Because the thing is, legs are quite strong. Legs don't actually have to be that big, or like you'd be surprised. You can see some normal looking legs, but they can be very strong. Strength and size and all that can be very deceptive. But yeah, if there's one thing you never want to get hit by, it's a leg. Also, not to mention the bone in your knee. It's one of if I recall this right, it's one of the strongest bones in your body to hit someone with. Like, if you get hit by a knee, it's over, man. Story 14. I knew a girl who was living with a guy who had severe anger management issues. He had kept it under control for the few years they had lived together, but one day he snapped over some minor issue. Hit her repeatedly, banged her face in the concrete, and tried to choke her until a passeree stopped him. So obviously, the relationship was over, and she was going to fetch her stuff from the apartment. She, likewise, obviously didn't want to go alone, so me, 2 other friends, and her brother, who I also knew, tagged along to keep things in check and help her carry the stuff out. When we arrive, her ex gives us attitude, which causes her anxiety, and docile brother to snap completely. He smacked the guy up against the wall with one hand and punched him repeatedly with other, holding him up against the wall the whole time, because you don't hit someone who is down. We just stood there in shock and awe, given the way the girl looked after the beating she had received, black and blue, bruised, her entire face scraped, choke marks around the neck, and so on. We didn't mind much what was going on, and just let him punch him out. Then we got her stuff and left as he started to wake up. 2 times during the following months, the ex was jumped twice when moving outdoors in the evening. I don't know who did it, and I don't want to know. I guess everybody has their trigger. Story 15. I worked with this theater director who was well known for being one of the nicest and the most intelligent people you can meet. But there was one actor in this show who was a grade A pain in the a-hole. She would constantly be late for rehearsals. Once she didn't show up at all. The reason was her girlfriend was in a car accident. But the problem was she didn't tell the stage manager, director, and anyone she wasn't coming. We found out through Facebook. This was a show with some deaf cast members and some hearing actors who didn't know ASL, had to do some signing. So we brought in an ASL instructor. This woman though did know some ASL and thought she knew better than the college professor and would constantly try to correct her. We were doing spacing rehearsal in one of our touring spaces with very limited time. This is 2 months into the rehearsal process, and the director had finally had enough of her having a backhanded comment for everything. He adjusts her blocking slightly, just because the space we're in is a bit different. She starts to say something, and the director just screams, "The show isn't about you, god damn it!" And he throws his script to the ground so that pages fly everywhere. It's the first time any of us have ever heard him yell or curse in anger. She runs off the stage crying. Then he calmly says, "Can we get back to work, please?" And then later, during a break, I overhear him talking to her about how he's going to tell everyone he knows in theater never to hire her or work with her. Story 60. Me and a few friends used to frequent a pub in my hometown. It was a small place in the town center, a traditional English pub, complete with attractive barmaid and consistent regulars, us included. Every time we were in there, a guy would be sat at the bar on his own with a half of bitter. He'd occasionally join the banter, but was never loud or drunk. It was a nice bloke, always said hello, and smiled. We knew him only as Ray. Now Ray was about 60, but fit. Not big, just a normal looking guy. A few forearm tattoos. Pretty standard for the north of England in the 90s. One Saturday afternoon, me and 4 of my friends were having our usual couple of drinks. As it was Saturday, there was a football match on. 3 away fans walked into the pub, already a brave move. But this is a friendly place. Everyone eyes them suspiciously, but carries on drinking. They walk to the bar and immediately start being horrible to the barmaid, making lewd comments, complaining loudly about the beer, etc. Ray looks at these 3 guys and says, "No need to be rude, boys. She's here to do a job." Cue a stream of verbal abuse from the away fans. "Shut the F up, granddad. What are you gonna do about it?" etc. The regulars are having none of this. Everyone, me included, stands up and stares at these idiots. Ray turns to everyone and just says, "Sit down, lads. I'll deal with this." Turns to the away fans. "You 3, outside now." These 3 guys, obviously there for a fight anyway, are all effing come on then, granddad, let's go. They all walk out of the bar, and not 20 seconds later, Ray walks back in without a word, sits back on his stool, and sips his half a bitter. Curiosity got the better of us, so we ran outside to see complete carnage. 2 guys out cold on the pavement, one on his backside with blood pouring out of his nose. Turns out Ray was ex-Special Air Service, and the barmaid was his daughter.